Hello and a very warm welcome to the Late Breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage and me, Ben Hocking, reviewing today the Japanese Grand Prix and it happened, Sam.
Yes, there was a race that began, 50 odd laps or so happened, that race then ended. So it was a Grand Prix, one has been had. You join us slightly hungover after eating fantastic barbecue food, frozen margaritas, and Harry stumbling through the door with a packet of pork pies at 2 a.m.
That is true, folks. I bought a packet of mini pork pies following producer Kirsty's 30th birthday drinks yesterday.
Happy birthday, producer Kirsty.
Who's actually... She got us sourced and then has not turned up the next day for recording, which quite frankly is rude.
Yeah, we got a message from her on the state. What do you think we're all doing?
Yeah, I got a box of mini pork pies downstairs with my name on it.
Ben's eating a whole margarita pizza at midnight.
I did. Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
I respect it. Anyway, let's try and review what we just saw.
We'll give it a go because Max Verstappen took his first race win of the season ahead of the two McLarens. The first time this year that a McLaren hasn't won a Grand Prix. It was a double podium, at least for McLaren, though, just as they qualified. Lando Norris in second, Oscar Piastri in third. And that's where we'll kick off the conversation today, Sam, because this whole race felt like a challenge. Could McLaren do anything about that lead that never seemed to grow all that much, but Verstappen kept them both at arm's length? Was there anything? Well, let's start with Verstappen, I guess. Verstappen, what did you make of his performance?
I mean, Verstappen's did a great job of running away in clean air a little bit, just holding that 2-second gap back. And unfortunately, this race, I believe, sets the new record of being the first race ever where the top six starting in one order, and they finished in that exact order. So even Monaco hasn't set that record before. So well done to Suzuka 2025. It was a real banger. Max did everything he needed to do. It was a classic 2v1 scenario, and he's been in these before, right? He's trained. He's gone up against the episodes 4 to 6 in Mercedes, and now he's up against the prequels.
He's on the prequels. Excellent.
Into McLaren.
Where's Jar Jar Binks appearing?
He's dealing with the Padawans at the moment. And he dealt with them well. He forever kept them at arm's length. And the only time that there was any kind of danger that looked to actually threaten his lead was a slow pit stop that came about courtesy of Red Bull, where we got a little bit of argy-bargy, a bit of elbow out action, exiting the pit lane. Lando Norris 2 wheels on the grass, Verstappen scampered off. And kind of that was, all she wrote. It really was a bit of a masterclass in just, I'm going to run my own race. I'm going to keep my tyres healthy. I'm going to keep it just outside DRS range. And it is what it is. But it looked very difficult to follow. The tyres looked like they were never, ever going to fall off. Pirelli's rubber could probably get taken off at Japan and fitted back on at Bahrain for free practice 1, and those tyres would be fine. He did a brilliant job. He did a really, really brilliant job. I actually think as much as he did a brilliant job, it was McLaren that lost themselves this race rather than Verstappen outclassing the field to win this race. He did a great job, but I do think it was McLaren that threw this win away.
Yeah, on the tyres, we obviously saw last year, as we kind of discussed in the build-up to the Grand Prix, that there were at least Charles Leclerc and a couple of others outside the top 10 last year were trying that two-stop and somewhat making it work. It never felt like with those relatively damp conditions today, never actually had rain, but it was still pretty cold, pretty damp. Tyres just went forever, and a two-stop for anyone was out of the question fairly early on. I mean, we even saw the soft tyre make an appearance for a few drivers. Harry, what did you make of Verstappen's win?
It was classic Verstappen, wasn't it? If you want to stop Max Verstappen from winning, don't allow him to get pole position as a rule.
In
the book, because from there on, especially a circuit like Suzuka, oh god, he was faultless. And Sam, you mentioned the 2v1 scenario, which is correct, but McLaren didn't give him anything to worry about.
Exactly what I mean, though, by them losing the race rather than Max winging it.
Max is, you've had the experts at 2v1 with Mercedes, and Max is like, this is pretty easy, isn't it? They're just not doing anything.
One hand behind his back, sword fighting.
Yeah, I've been here before, and they were better than this. It wasn't much for him to think about, and that's not taking anything away from him. He was he was faultless today, and it was just a vintage Verstappen drive and win. He just sort of drove to the pace he needed to, didn't overdrive, and just let Norris and Piastri was squabbling behind him, and he just drove the pace he needed to do to take the win. So yeah, can't take anything away from it. It was faultless, and to be honest, in a car that I don't think deserves to win at all. With keeping behind him the two fastest cars on the grid at the moment, so it was a very impressive drive. Do you know what? That is a sign of a great driver. It was super impressive. I'm just like, oh yeah, it's Verstappen, isn't it? But that in itself is a sign of how
his
good he is.
average is so much better than 95% of the grid's very good. And that just shows you how good Max Verstappen is. Qualifying this year is essential. You've got to get qualifying right. And this Japanese Grand Prix told the tale of having to nail qualifying because, if that was to be a tenth the other way and Max starts third, that order finishes with Max Verstappen in third place. I don't think he ends up really getting past either of those McLarens, and they probably run off into the distance. So not mucking up your qualifying is as important as it ever has been right now. And Lewis Hamilton, for example, paid that price by sitting that far back and being in no man's land after he got past Isaac Hadjar on his teammate.
Was he in this race?
Maybe.
Where can I improve? All of Suzuka.
All of the corners.
All faster. Every single thing you can do is better.
We'll get on to that. I was just going to point out, we are now halfway to 2012's record of 7 different races.
Oh, yeah, 3 different winners.
So we're on 3. I guess 4 if you want to count the sprint, but it doesn't count because it's a sprint. But certainly the races, we're up to 3 now. So yeah, George, come on, be better next.
And
next
also
weekend.
3 different pole sitters.
Oh yeah, that too.
Come on. Low key could be a fun season. Even though it looked like it maybe was going the way of McLaren, we won't get too ahead of ourselves.
Fast but silly, always.
Verstappen was, as you've kind of both alluded to, Verstappen was what we've come to expect from Verstappen. The genius of him is just not being surprised, and it never, as I mentioned, like that gap did occasionally go down to a second, 1.2 seconds. Sometimes it went out to 2 seconds. It never felt like he was in trouble. It was only really the pit phase where you felt like McLaren could pull something off. But on track, as was kind of the case up and down the field, you felt that he probably wasn't going to be overtaken. Just again, the Hamilton Hadjar overtake happened, but so few others did. Those tires were lasting a long time. The dirty air did seem to be a real factor. And yeah, I mean, he cruised it. And I agree with your point on it really qualifying won and lost the race today, because if Verstappen only qualifies third, he probably finishes third. And if he qualifies fifth, he probably finishes fifth. But ultimately, he pulled out that excellent pole lap, and the pace was good enough to see off that challenge. I think it was, even though that car wasn't, I still think the strongest car out there today. I think Red Bull will be encouraged that they seem to have genuinely better pace here than they did at China. And now we wait to see if it's, which one's the one to pay attention to. Is it this race or the one before, as we head into the second 2 parts of this triple header? Like, is this going to continue on? Can they distance themselves from, or at least can Verstappen distance himself from the Ferraris, from the Mercedes, and really present that challenge to McLaren? Similar maybe to what we had when he was challenging the Mercs, almost in this 2v1 scenario.
Side note, we praised in China for the TV direction for showing us battles after they crossed the line, and we had one moment of action with the leaders all Grand Prix. And did we watch it live? No, we cut to it as Lando Norris is coming back off of the grass. You had one thing to capture in an hour and a half, and you managed to miss it. Just so typical Formula One TV.
Yeah. On the McLaren side of things, Harry, we've already spoken a little bit on, was this a race won by Verstappen or lost by McLaren? What could they have done, if anything?
Just anything different, really. I'm still slightly baffled by the decision to bring Norris in at the same time as Verstappen. No boxing opposite. Either Verstappen pits and you carry on, or you pit because Verstappen's not come in. Just, I don't think it would have made a huge amount of difference because I think the undercut just wasn't really working today. I say undercut. It was working in the sense of you had to have like a few laps undercut, not just your standard one lap. But at least try something just to put them under pressure. But doing it in the pit lane was never. I know it almost worked, but you're relying on Red Bull having a duff stop, more duff than the one they had.
Yeah,
and it just felt like it wasn't really going to do much, and then they just sat there behind him for the entirety of the race. So at least give Norris the opportunity to unlock the potential of that car for a lap and see where we get to, or undercut him and do the same thing. It just, unimaginative from McLaren today. And, I don't think it's going to cost them in the long run this year, but if it does get tighter towards the end of the season, they can't be sitting on their laurels like that, because it wasn't a very, as I say, imaginative way to go about trying to win the race. They didn't do anything.
No, this is where you need a George Russell in your team, because he would have come over the radio and gone, let's go long, guys. So he would have come over and shouting something. If I'm Piastri, you need to go, I'm not getting past Norris and Verstappen. Norris isn't going to let me through. We're not going to do a team order swap because we're direct rivals in the championship. We've got to try something different. The worst that happens is I end up back in P3. It's really not the end of the world. So the moment Max and Norris come in on the same lap, you've got to run 8, 9, 10 laps longer on those tyres, whack on the hard tyres. We saw how fast Kimi Antonelli was the moment he got into clean air on those hard tyres, and once he warmed them up, he was in belting form. The lap times to Russell were coming down about a second or so a lap at 1.89 tenths, and you've got someone like Norris who is just cooped up behind Verstappen trying to conserve. If Piastri arrives on the scene with 4 or 5 laps to go and his tyres are 10 laps fresher, there's every chance that he can actually get better traction coming out of that final chicane, use the DRS to his advantage, and get something done. I'm not expecting him to overcut them and end up coming out in front of them. I just don't see that happening. But I genuinely think there's going to be a chance to at least battle for second and first from Piastri's point of view. And the fact that they had this advantage of a 2v1 and they did nothing else with it, it's just so silly, but so not fast from McLaren. And that's the wrong way that you want to be. As you said, really, really unimaginative.
Yeah, try something. It doesn't. You really don't have much to lose. You are pretty much locked in to second and third place. So it gives something a go. Like we saw with Antonelli, with how long he went. Now I appreciate he started 6th and finished 6th and didn't make any progress, but he was comfortably behind George Russell in the first stint. He went long. Second stint, he catches him. Like he's only 1.3 behind at the end. And we know that the McLarens were at least similarly paced to the point where they could sit in the sort of 2-second gap behind Verstappen quite comfortably. What if they did have 10 lap fresher tires? What would have happened then? Like there would have maybe been the opportunity to get into that DRS zone, which would seem to elude Lando Norris. He consistently in the last few laps got to 1.2, 1.1, I think at one point, but never within the DRS. Could that have been the difference? But even if the answer to that is no, you've tried. So I think with at least one of them, as again, the Merc versus Verstappen comparison comes back, because you have the opportunity, like you can 2v1 and have an opportunity to essentially get one of your guys on the winning strategy, whichever that one is. And I think Norris and Piastri at this point in the season are probably both mature enough to give something different a go and not be annoyed if it works for the other guy and doesn't work for you. So yeah, I felt that McLaren should have done something different. What about that moment that we've already mentioned coming out of the pits? We saw Norris and Verstappen elect to pit on the same lap. Slow, uncharacteristically slow pit stop from Red Bull. Saw them come out almost side by side. Verstappen about, I would say, half a car length ahead or so. But Norris absolutely bolts it out of the pit lane until he goes on the grass. Norris says that it was Verstappen who pushed him there. Verstappen says he put himself on the grass. Harry, how did you see it? Is it fair that it wasn't? Was it even investigated? Or was just no action at all?
It was investigated.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, he drove on the grass, didn't he? he didn't. Look, he was clear, and even after the race, Norris was saying it was fine. But he was just trying to get something out of that, and that gap was always going to close. Verstappen did nothing wrong in how he exited the pit lane. Norris was driving into a gap that was always going to close in terms of tarmac, and he ended up on the grass. You can't blame him for trying, but to be honest, that could have ended badly. It could have gone wrong because the grass is quite wet because they'd had rain overnight. And you saw he was actually pretty out of control when he hits that grass. If that's just, he hits that slightly differently, or there's too much throttle, he spears into the barrier, into Verstappen, and then, it's all gone wrong. So
the internet explodes. The
internet would have popped. It wouldn't have.
I actually wouldn't mind after what we saw.
Sure, something would have happened, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, so it easily could have gone wrong. I understand why he was trying to go for it, but there's nothing doing there at all. Verstappen was absolutely fine. And to be honest, it was sort of like, it was quite a unique one because McLaren were at the end of the pit lane, so they could, get away with that. Any other time, you might have said that was an unsafe release, but because they were right at the end, they could just go. So yeah, I will give him credit for being that quick on the button, the speed limit button, because he was on it versus Verstappen there, but yeah, it didn't pay off, and wasn't worth it in the end. But no penalty or anything in my view. It was absolutely fine.
Any further thoughts on it, Sam?
No, in total agreement. I actually think that McLaren are more at fault and probably got away with not being given an unsafe release because they were mighty close in the pit lane. And as Harry said, if that was halfway down the pit lane on the other end of it, there's a real chance that they are, that McLaren will have to run side by side with the Red Bull all the way down. You could hit another wheel gun from another team or something like that. There's a lot of people, a lot of machinery that sits on that inside line. They're very lucky that they didn't have to pass another box basically when they made that pit stop. So, Verstappen was a little bit rough in terms of, he definitely spread that car as wide as it could be coming out of that pit lane, but I have no issue with that. He's the car in front. He's also entitled just to use the pit lane. He was ahead when they released the McLaren. Absolutely nothing there. Actually, I think Lando is lucky, as Harry said, to not have had more of an incident, less of an incident rather on the grass and cause himself any more bother.
Yeah, no penalty from my side as well. I think Lando Norris knew it wasn't as well. Like it was the post-race interview that kind of gave it away, where he was asked about it, and I can't remember his exact response, but he said something along the lines of, that's racing. It was like, yeah,
he's got to try, isn't he? He's got to try.
Oh yeah, exactly. But I think he probably knew that it wasn't going to stick.
I really enjoyed Verstappen's cool-down room comments where that came up on the screen, actually. And Max went, very expensive lawnmower. And I just thought, oh, Max, you're in the mind, aren't you? You're playing them games.
I did like the cool-down room just for them talking about how nothing happened.
Is that it?
There were no overtakes. David Croft, but there were some overtakes.
Please.
That's not a great advert. All right, let's take our first break on this episode. On the other side, we're going to discuss Mercedes and Ferrari. Welcome back, everyone. A stat that we've already referenced in the first part of today's episode is that the top six all finished in the order that they started, which of course included one of the Ferraris and Charles Leclerc, and both of the Mercs in 5th and 6th places. Should we start with Ferrari, Sam? Obviously, they haven't achieved much this season so far in terms of points after Australia didn't go their way, double disqualification at China. Some solid points here, even if they couldn't challenge for the podium. Do they walk away from this weekend with bigger disappointment that the top three were unchallenged from their perspective? Or do they walk away thinking we just needed something and we've got something?
No, I don't think that could be Ferrari's mindset. I don't think they could sit there and go, oh, cool, we've got the minimum thing that a team like Ferrari should be challenging for when we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on this project and we have Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc as our driver lineup. Accepting at some points is not going to be enough. That's not acceptable. The thing they can take solace from is that no one was really moving in this race. It really was pretty much, finish where you start, unless you're Lewis Hamilton, who I think was the only change in position in the whole top 10 was the swap between Hamilton and Hadjar. So at least he got that done.
And that was just him letting his idol by. Like,
please, I am not worthy. I am not worthy. It really was. But hey, we got something, I suppose. No, the biggest issue that Ferrari will come away with from this weekend is looking at the gap that started to emerge between Verstappen in the Red Bull and the two McLarens. And the fact that it was Verstappen who was almost the cork in the bottle. He wasn't holding up those McLarens, but I do think that had it been flipped around, the gap back to the rest of the field would have been much larger. And so I think it may be through rose-tinted glasses, they may look at this result and go, well, we were only, 12, 13 seconds off of the fight up front come the end of the race. I actually think it was going to be significantly larger if McLaren were able to get in front of Verstappen and they were able to lead that way. So that will be their biggest concern. They have not got the pace at the moment to match the Red Bull. They do have the pace to match the McLaren even further off. It's a worrying moment for Ferrari because when they were semi-winning races at the end of last year, they were so close to taking a championship. They really closed the gap. To come into this new season, and they had the whole Lewis Hamilton hype. Leclerc and Hamilton was the best driver lineup. They had a real, almost, aura going into what Ferrari was. It could be their year, which is Ferrari's favorite slogan at the start of every single season. It is once again, it was not their year. And it's not looking good, Chief. I think they might be the fourth fastest car at the moment.
It was a fresh twist in the tale of this epic championship battle between Ferrari and Williams. So a good day for Ferrari in that regard. They've put some distance between them and the blue team. Harry, how will Ferrari look at this weekend? Do you think it is more negative than positive? What do you reckon?
I mean, they will be pleased to not be disqualified yet. But yet, yeah, exactly.
Well done.
But yeah, I am with you, Sam. I think it's pretty disappointing in terms of pace. They were not that they were bad. They just weren't there with. It's probably I would say the furthest away they've looked this season, pace wise versus McLaren and Verstappen. Certainly versus China and then Australia as well. So yeah, I think it'll be disappointed at that. It's quite it's quite a different circuit to the other ones we've been to so far. So I guess they can take solace in the fact that, it's quite different and that they'll go to, Bahrain next week will be very different again. So, and they look good there in testing. So, I guess it was about getting some actual points on the board, but they can't be too satisfied with how that's gone because they weren't really there at all pace wise. And like you said, Sam, they were, fourth fastest team again, Verstappen being his own team at this point, but they didn't even have the pace to catch the Merc, so they'll be disappointed. I'd hazard a guess that it will be better next week. Saudi Arabia remains to be seen, but I'm not sure Ferrari are going to be amazingly pleased with how this one has gone. They just seem to lack. Again, they weren't terrible. They just seem to lack any real speed.
Yeah, and speaking of Bahrain, like they are going to be hoping that this new floor that's on its way is a game changer, and I think they'll be annoyed that they're in a position where it needs to be. Like, I think if you'd have said like at the beginning of the season that we've got something planned for Bahrain, like an upgrade, they'd have wanted it to be like a top up on what is already either the fastest car or very close to the fastest car. They're not in that situation right now. As you say, like positions wise, there was so little changing that I don't think it's overly disappointing that Leclerc couldn't make any progress from fourth. But Lewis Hamilton and Lewis Hamilton gaining just one spot, but it's the time difference that was more concerning from my side. Like if Charles Leclerc had still finished fourth, but he was 3 seconds behind the two McLarens, I think you take that. And equally, if Hamilton was on the back of Kimi Antonelli, really challenging for him for that 6th place, again, points-wise, you're not making any difference to what you actually got, but you're at least showing a little bit more in terms of performance. They didn't show a lot. Charles Leclerc was never really in contention with that top 3. Hamilton, as soon as he overtook Hadjar, that was his day done. And yeah, even though it is solid points and that will at least cement them in 4th place in the championship, that's not their objective for the season based on where they were last year. In the very last race of 2024, they were challenging for the Constructors' Championship. It would have been the objective this year to finally, after about 18 years, win another Constructors' Championship, and it's just not going their way.
I've got a feeling that we're going to get to the end of the year and talk about these first few races for Ferrari, but like, if only they were better.
Yeah, that floor is going to be revolutionary. They'll suddenly be really good from Bahrain, but the damage is already done.
What about Mercedes, 5th and 6th, Sam?
I think on pace-wise, they were faster than 5th and 6th today. George Russell right on the back of Charles Leclerc for quite a long time. That looked like it could be the closest battle that we were going to have for a little while, but it seemed like the nature of Suzuka, the way the tyres were, the damp conditions, it was a perfect storm for the most boring storm in the world. And unfortunately, that's a clear blue sky.
Like
that's pretty dull.
A light drizzle.
A gentle breeze upon the neck, on the nape. Yeah, not fun. Not fun at all. Really, really dull. And George Russell, unfortunately, much like many others up and down the grid, was unable to really do anything to capitalise upon that. And again, it's where qualifying hurts. It's where the mistakes in qualifying on the Saturday have cost him, because I think George Russell probably could have qualified on the front row. If not, he could have been in 4th place. And if he does that, there's a chance that Mercedes, I think, could have been right up there with the McLarens for the entire Grand Prix, or at least fighting around them, because you wedge yourself into 3rd place. If you out-qualify Piastri, for example, I think he finishes on the podium. I do think that George, especially in that Mercedes, has got that pace. So they'll be frustrated, I think, Mercedes. I think they had a frustrating day on Saturday. I think they'll be more frustrated today that they were stuck in between these 2 Ferraris that didn't really have a lot of pace. Kimi Antonelli, on the other hand, whilst he didn't go anywhere, and whilst his initial pace didn't look incredible, this is the kind of race that someone like Kimi Antonelli needs. And you could hear that passion over the radio when Bono was like, fastest man on track, great pace. I'm giving it everything. I'm giving it everything. Good lad. It's like your dad patting your back. Good job, mate.
It really was.
Well done, son.
Well done, son. You're trying really hard.
You're winning, son. No, I'm 6th, Bono.
I'm having a great time, and I'm going really fast. And you know what? Good for you, Kimi Antonelli. This will boost his confidence. Finishing only 1.2, 1.3 behind George Russell, I think will end up being a real positive for him. I think he'll come away from this race with some confidence in his locker, which he needs. And this is exactly what a rookie driver should be doing, is finishing right next to their very experienced, very talented teammate and bringing home as many points as they can, because they weren't moving forwards. But equally, mistakes could have been made today. There were some damp patches. The track was cold. We've seen how much gravel and poor runoff there is at Suzuka. Someone like Kimi Antonelli is easily the candidate where he could have made a mistake and ended up catapulting himself into a wall and coming home with nothing. So I think whilst Mercedes won't be overly happy with the results, they will be happy with what Kimi was able to produce.
Harry, Mercedes, thoughts?
Thanks, Ben. Look, I think George, as you said, Sam did all of his damage yesterday in qualifying. I think he could have been in that top 3. If he has a better lap in Q3, then he is in amongst it. But realistically, he might do Piastri, but they might have got him. Piastri might have got him in the race anyway through the pit stops. So I think the bigger disappointment will be not beating Leclerc on that one, because I think the Mercedes was a faster car than the Ferrari this weekend. So I think that's props to Leclerc for being ahead of both of them. Antonelli, it's weird to say, but that's probably his first proper race in terms of Melbourne was wet and chaos. China, because of a poor qualifying, he was just stuck in dirty air and obviously learning a lot, and it was his own doing, but
that damage as well.
Yeah, and had damage. So this is the first proper just sort of standard race for him. I thought he was very impressive, and I admire the. Of course, he would just be going flat out all the time. I wouldn't
Yeah,
expect
yeah.
anything less, but
Breakneck speed all
Yeah.
of the time.
he's just walking. Going so fast, Bono. But yeah, no, I thought it was a very, very measured and good race from him. You know, and again, this is all learning for him, and you know, he'll doing this alternate strategy to Russell. He'll see how, you know, he can lock that one away now, how that worked, because as he said earlier on, Ben, he was only a second behind him, or just over a second behind him by the end of the race. So he you know, lock that one away for future use if they want to start doing alternate strategies. He knows how that's going to work. So I was impressed by him. But yeah, overall Mercedes, they might have, with Russell, maybe a couple of places or maybe just one place above where they were. But I think it's probably pretty much the most they had this weekend.
Yeah, I feel like from Russell's perspective, this was maybe the first weekend this season that he hasn't maximised the car underneath him, because he'd done such a great job in Australia and China to finish on the podium in both of those races, and you didn't feel like there was much more that he had left. Here, though, certainly fourth place was on the cards if he'd qualified better. So a little bit disappointing from Russell's side. From Kimi Antonelli's perspective, firstly, absolutely loved that he was the first person to go nope to the Casio triangle. And then also the other highlight from Antonelli was just seeing that he had lap time deleted, because he's probably just not on the first sector.
Just straight lined the S's.
Yeah. He's something, isn't he? But I think it was an encouraging weekend from Antonelli, like to be a part of that main group. Like the front running group is what he didn't do in China. And obviously Australia, due to the poor qualifying, was a bit trickier to judge. But yeah, I think Antonelli he did the weekend the right way around, because in terms of practice, his pace was not very good. Like, he was pretty slow versus Russell in practice, and also in the earlier parts of qualifying as well. He seemed to work his way into the weekend. Like, he worked his way into Q3 and then was able to deliver a lap within a couple of attempts of Russell. We get to the race today. I know it was somewhat strategy dependent, but it did feel like he got better as the race went on, starting to understand the track more, starting to, understand F1 more. Again, it's just his third race. So I think Antonelli will be relatively content with his weekend. Should we do driver of the day?
Oh, I can't wait.
The verdict is in. Ooh, you're the driver of the day. You're the driver of the day. You're good at driving.
The background a cappella music of that does not get enough love.
Slaps.
Does indeed. Harry, driver of the day.
Max Verstappen. But I mean, mainly for yesterday, but he didn't put a foot wrong all afternoon. As I said earlier on, I don't think that Red Bull deserves to be I don't think the Red Bull deserves to be on the podium, let alone be winning a race. So this was a Max Verstappen day.
Sam?
Copy paste. Don't want to go on about it.
Done. We're so tired.
Fair. I'll at least give a shout out to one other driver, Hadjar, leading Formula 1.5. Even with him losing a position to Lewis Hamilton, it never really looked like he was going to lose another spot. His pace early on wasn't brilliant, but he got better as the race went on as well. So yeah, I'll go for Verstappen though, because he won the race and was good at the driving. What about worst driver of the day?
Get in the bin, worst driver of the day. Bin, worst driver of the day. You suck at driving.
Sam, who have you got?
Gosh, so many to choose from because so much happened. I actually don't even know. Like, you know how it's just not bad enough to make you go, wow, you sucked today. Like, you suck at driving today. Stroll couldn't get off the back of the grid and was just all around really, really slow. So I'm probably going to give it to Stroll, but Lawson and Doohan are up there. That wasn't ideal from them guys at all, fighting around with a bloody cutler.
Best race of the year for Lawson, man. What are you talking about?
Cut of sours for company. Yeah, it wasn't great, but I'm going to go Stroll.
Me too. I appreciate Aston Martin tried something a little bit different, and so did Alpine with doing, starting on the soft tyre. Didn't really work because Stroll was pitting after 10 laps, hoping to get some sort of undercut maybe that never materialized. 19 drivers finished on the lead lap. I'll pick the one that didn't.
Nice.
Harry?
Yeah, Stroll. I knew this was going to happen because I put him in my bloody fantasy team.
Oh, here we go. The demise. It starts.
It starts. I was like,
we've got 2 races, folks.
Lance has had such a good start to the year. Let's chuck him in. Let's give him a go. And then he has an absolute howler of a weekend.
I bet your fantasy team at the moment is Stroll, Bortoletto, Ocon, Lawson, and Hulkenberg.
It's all right. We've got Albon in there.
And you've somehow
Albon and
not
Russell.
got any budget left.
Yeah. Spend it all on what?
No budget. Yeah, Stroll was. I mean, yeah, like I said, they tried something different, but the damage was done yesterday, and even if it was a bad qualifying, the Aston Martin isn't last place. it's not the slowest car on the grid, as Alonso proved in P11. So, not a good day for Lance, and he will be immediately coming out of my team so he can do better again.
Good idea. Big brain Strat.
Oh, hang on.
Bob, we're gonna need you to box for wets. What? It's not even raining out. What are you talking about? Yeah, and Bob, if you get a chance, let your teammate pass you. What? He crashed out. He's not even in the race.
Honestly, we should sell that to the killers.
They'd have it. They'd have it immediately.
It will be a number
for free. You're the killers.
Yeah, as long as you just shout us out. As long as you say hello to me, Brendan Flowers.
Yeah. Is he Brendan or Brandon?
No, he's Brandon. I'm just
Brendan.
It's his cousin.
Well, I am Brendan Flowers. I'm Brendan Weeds.
It's our killers tribute act with Brendan Flowers.
We are the survivors, and I'm Brendan Weeds.
The survivors. The murderers. Oh dear. Sorry.
So, big brain Strat. Sam, what we got?
I'm going to call out McLaren, but one very specific moment, which is the box opposite of Verstappen, box to overtake Verstappen, stay out. And it's just like, the dummy doesn't work anymore, guys. It literally hasn't worked since 1969. I haven't seen a successful one of these pulled off for a long time, mate. Max is just cruising by like, yeah, okay, thanks, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, terrible call. Did not work.
I'm going to go with Lawson and Sainz. So they went long on the first stint, and Sainz was just trapped behind Liam Lawson. And they just ended up doing the exact same thing. They pit on the same lap and both went onto the soft tyres. I feel like Williams felt like they were onto a winner with this strategy. And then they realized that the V-Cup on the same lap just did the same thing. And he did overtake him on track, so fair play. But he was stuck there for a long time and then was probably hoping for something different and got the same thing. Harry, from you?
Mine's sort of related to strategy rather than actual strat, but just Alex Albon being so mad at Williams.
Oh, I hate that you brought this up. I was so excited to talk about this for a moment of the race. I hate that you brought this up now.
But it's so mad. Williams doing anything different than just stopping early. And then, you'd say it didn't work to gain any positions, so he finished where he started, but also can't be mad at them for trying something different. He's like,
what do you want?
He's so furious about it.
Sassy thanks.
Yeah, so I'll go for that one because in the end, I think it worked as well as it could have done given how the race went.
Fair enough. That's going to lead us into our second break on this episode. On the other side, we're going to chat more on the midfield. Welcome back, everyone. Let's round out the top 10, shall we? So Isaac Hadjar scored points for the first time in his F1 career. Obviously, took advantage of what was a very good qualifying attempt from him yesterday. did let Lewis Hamilton pass, but I think that was a foregone conclusion given the Ferrari versus the Racing Bulls. But after that, held off Albon, held off Behrman, and everyone else behind. Lawson, on the other hand, wasn't able to score points in his return to the team, was sort of midway outside the bottom 10 for most of this Grand Prix, and I don't even know where he finished, but it wasn't the other points. Sam, what did you make of the AlphaTauris?
I don't even know where he finished, but he sucked. He was 17th, by the way, Liam Lawson.
17th, okay.
That is 7 places away from the points from him. It hasn't been keeping count. Nice. Isaac Hadjar gets 4 big booms from me. Boo! For 4 big points. That is sensational. I bet Yuki Tsunoda is looking at that Racing Bull in 8th place and going, why now? Why is it now that they score points? When I'm not in that bloody car. He was like, that could be me. Why have I been demoted in this Red Bull family tree?
The one race where it was almost impossible to mess up your strategy is the race he moved away.
Yeah. And well done to Isaac Hadjar for getting the job done. Yeah, it's a shame that he let Lewis Hamilton by, but actually, I think the gap between Hamilton and Hadjar was smaller than the gap from Hamilton to Antonelli at the end of the race. So I do think that he did a really good job at separating himself from the fight of Albon and Behrman behind him, that battle that went on forever between Alonso and Gasly and Tsunoda that seemed to be raging on for a while. He was a step ahead of the rest of the field, in my opinion, and Hadjar's the real deal, man. I really think that he's got something, and I do think that if Red Bull look after him properly and he's actually cared for and continues to have a car that suits his driving style, we could see a bit of a star. You know, he's already a TikTok sensation. Can he be a Formula One sensation? That's what we're waiting to see. I think so. Lawson will be so frustrated. He will be so frustrated. I'm sure that he's had to pick himself up off the floor after being demoted after 2 races, which is ridiculous. So you've heard the comments from other F1 drivers about how ridiculously quick this is and how unfair it is. But to then have a poor qualifying, but in front of Yuki Tsunoda, that's okay. Well done. That's one step. But to see your teammate not only score their first points, but score proper points, really good points, and to be this many places behind, 9 positions off, at a track where I don't think Hadjar's ever properly raced here before, whereas Liam Lawson has been here at least 3 times in his career, if not more than that. It should be a happy hunting ground for Liam Lawson. He's got the experience here, if not 4 times, actually. So to finish 17th place, 80 seconds or so off the lead, double the time of what your teammate is away. It's a really, really poor weekend from Liam Lawson. He's got to hope that something goes his way very, very soon. Otherwise, there might be a double demotion. He might be out of this seat by the mid-season.
Harry, what did you make of the V-Carb duo?
Yeah, Hadjar was really impressive this weekend, and it's quite easy to forget that race, where he was at race 1, where crashing out of the formation up and in tears in the paddock afterwards. That could have been a lot to recover from just mentally, but he has and has been very impressive. Obviously with Tsunoda, he was there on the pace in China, and then he's beaten Lawson here as well. But in general, Lawson aside, it was a very impressive weekend from him. And like I said, he did let Hamilton got past him, but also, like you said, Sam, Hadjar was still pretty close to him towards the end of the race. So impressive stuff from Hadjar. I hope that this continues for him, and I'm sure Red Bull do as well. Liam Lawson, I don't actually think Liam Lawson can be weirdly the best race for him so far this year. I don't think he can look at this and be like, it was a disaster, because he's not driven that car until this weekend. And around Suzuka, trying to get to grips with the new car is pretty tricky in itself. His pace in qualifying, yes, Hadjar qualified him. He can take solace in the fact that he did Tsunoda, which is, I'm sure you mentioned this on the qualifying review, but lol.
We did lol.
Yeah. We said the word lol.
Lol. Yeah. And at least he was in the mix. He was sort of in the mix of that. I know it was not for anything massive or important, but he was certainly in the mix for positions, which he has not been at other, certainly not in China and I guess Australia as well. So it still needs to be better than that, but I think he can probably take solace in the fact that this is race one in a new car, and it wasn't. He wasn't slow. We didn't go, oh God, Lawson was so slow. I think he'd probably take a little bit of solace in that and move on to Bahrain, where I think it will be easier and better for him.
Yeah, I think Bahrain is quite commonly one of the circuits where there isn't a huge amount between teammates. I'm not saying it's an easy track, but a lot of the time in Bahrain, you will get these like Noah's Ark grids, and I wouldn't be surprised if Lawson is a bit closer in Bahrain. Here, though, to lose, 3 spots on his starting position in a race where no one was really moving anywhere, that's not ideal. I wanted to see him pace-wise be a little bit more involved than he was, but again, first race in that car, I think we can cut him some slack this weekend. In terms of Isaac Hadjar, 4 big booms is very appropriate for the Rizzler. Like he was great. Again, you can't really hold it against him that he was overtaken by Hamilton in that Ferrari. You could have done if there was anyone else that managed to make their way by as well. But he controlled the race very effectively from there. We know that Alex Albon in the Williams has been pretty quick so far this year, and he was the next car up after Hadjar. So to be able to not even really get in a fight with Albon and keep him at arm's length was very impressive. So good work from both of them. Speaking of the Williams duo, what did you make of Albon and Sainz, Sam?
Tricky, especially for Carlos Sainz. He obviously ends up going backwards after not a great qualifying, despite the gap being very close when the knockout in Q2 happened, about a tenth away from Alex Albon. So unlucky to be on that cutoff. The penalty that he gets from impeding Lewis Hamilton just puts him in the part of the pack that you just don't want to be in, especially in a racetrack where overtaking is seemingly very, very difficult. It's really tough to get around. Anyway, he tried. He did some good jobs at getting past some of the lower back end of that midfield, past the likes of Doing, etc. eventually. But it was never really going anywhere else for him. He was unable to make any proper inroads on anyone. He was unable to really get himself up the pack. And you saw just how hard it was to really progress in this Grand Prix. So I think he'll come away frustrated from this weekend. Alex Albon is already frustrated. That man called in just to be a hater. He has literally zero constructive feedback for anyone at Williams. He just wants to moan over the radio. And he's a little whinge bag at the moment. Alex, you're a little whinge bag. And you scored 2 points and you did an all right race and it was fine. And I think Williams will be happy with the fact that they outscored the likes of Haas and Alpine and Aston Martin. But they will also be frustrated that the Rizzler managed to get 4 big boom points in front of them. And actually that might be their closest battle this season. So frustrating when on one half of the garage, it looks like it's going the right way. On the other side, they kind of need to bring it up a little bit. So a mixed bag of tricks for Williams this weekend.
Your thoughts, Harry?
Yeah, mixed fortunes, I think, is fair. Albon, he's been quite whiny, but I guess if he keeps driving the way he is, Williams aren't going to care.
He's a point-scoring whinge bag at the moment.
Exactly. So
that's true.
They'll take it. I think he's actually driving really well. And whether that is just where he's always been, or he has stepped up his game for the fact that Sainz in the team, I don't know. But it's certainly being more impressive versus Sainz than I perhaps initially thought he would be at the start of the year. So good stuff from Albon. Sainz will be. I think this was his least convinced. Maybe this is his least convincing performance so far. I'm not sure. Maybe China was worse, but. There's something to be expected, but there's something not quite clicking versus Albon at the moment. I am pretty confident that it will come soon. But if this battle, as you mentioned, I think this battle with Racing Bulls could well be where they are. And well, I'm Ferrari, obviously, but it could well be where their fight lies this year with Racing Bulls. So they need both of their drivers both their drivers up there, and Sainz just quite in there at the moment. So hopefully this doesn't cost them later on in the season. Luckily for them, Racing Bulls haven't been able to do a strategy and also have had a new driver in the last 3 races. So it's helping Williams out at the moment.
True. Albon's doing such a great job so far this season. The fact that this might be his worst race so far should speak volumes, because it was good. Like, he'll score points where a lot of other teams and drivers haven't. In terms of Carlos Sainz, I think it was okay. I think he was better when he moved on to the soft tire, because he made progress where Lawson couldn't. I think the last stint was maybe a bit more encouraging for him, but at some point he's going to be a bit frustrated that he's not featuring in the top 10 with the same frequency as Alex Albon. Obviously, I know he picked up a point for the Chinese Grand Prix, but he needed a couple of disqualifications to get there. I don't think he'll be over the moon. Yuki Tsunoda. Sam, what do you make of, obviously, a lot of chatter about his first weekend for Red Bull, his home Grand Prix. What did you make of his race? Obviously, he was driver of the day, but didn't score points, though.
Side note, I hate this sympathetic fan voting for...
Where does it come from?
I've been around for a while.
Grow up, everyone.
Literally, grow up. If you're going to reward someone for being good, give it to the person that's doing a good job. Yuki was fine, but come on, don't be, Yuki, didn't score points on home Grand Prix, first race Red Bull, driver of the day, isn't that nice? Yeah, I'm sure he loves it. I'm sure that's what he was waiting for.
It was a farcical graphic as well, because he came up, driver of the day, started 14th, now 12th. Wow, well done, guys.
My favourite graphic at the moment is race story, starting second, still second. You're like, wow, good book. That's I can't put that one down.
Middle and end.
Yeah,
that's a real page turner, that one.
I'm going to turn that into a blockbuster, I'm sure. God, does my head in when I see it. But you don't need it. Don't put the graphic up. You have choice to put that up. Free will.
3 grumpy, tired men here.
Starting to crack. Yuki Tsunoda, he will be more than anyone frustrated, more than anyone in that team about his performance, especially his home Grand Prix. But I genuinely think he did okay. That Red Bull wasn't on the back of the back row of the grid. That Red Bull wasn't fighting for 18th place for the whole race. Yuki Tsunoda got some all right pace out of it, and we saw how difficult it was to make any movement up and down that grid. And I think, the Red Bull has got more pace than a lot of those midfield drivers, but I think you need to be a good second or so a lap faster to really be able to get the moves done, get the overtake sorted, move yourself up the grid, and actually gain anything, really. Fernando Alonso did a good job at the start of the race by getting in front of Pierre Gasly and basically didn't move after that point. And that was all we really saw. It was very hard to move yourself on like a massive tyre deficit. So whilst Yuki will be really gutted that he hasn't scored points here, I think there's some positive signs. He's definitely done a better job than Lawson was doing. And I think you give him some time to settle in, maybe a slightly easier track, a bit more running. I think he'll find himself in the points very, very soon, and he might be the answer that Red Bull are looking for. I'm not convinced yet, but it's definitely moved in the right direction in terms of that second seat. Ben isn't here right now, so...
Shall we carry on?
Harry, what are your thoughts on Yuki Tsunoda this weekend?
I don't think Yuki can be... I guess it's similar to Lawson. I don't think he'd be too disappointed with this weekend. It's, again, first time in this car. For the most part, up until about qualifying, he looked pretty on it with Verstappen. And then Verstappen was like, I'm the 4-time champ here.
I am Max Verstappen.
I forgot who he was. But for the most part, I think Tsunoda was up there. And look, that's what Red Bull want. Obviously, it didn't transpire into qualifying in the race, but I think that's pretty acceptable given it's race 1. But their reasoning, if there was any justification, was the fact that, Lawson's lap times were just not acceptable in terms of versus Verstappen or versus anyone. So I think, they'll feel slightly, they'll feel slightly justified in their decision, I guess, with the fact that Tsunoda was at least in the fight and fighting with other cars. But obviously he needs to keep improving on that and be scoring points when Verstappen is taking wins. So yeah, I don't think he can be disappointed with this weekend. I think it's probably gone. If it'd gone any better, I think we'd all be saying, "Wow, that was amazing from Yuki Tsunoda." Because I think even if he finishes, in the top 8, for example, people are like, "Yeah, fair. That's a good effort." So look, this is probably about as well as it could go. That car is clearly not easy to drive. I mean, Verstappen was struggling to drive it all weekend up until about Q3, and only he and his setup changes were the turning point there for him. So I think Tsunoda can be fairly pleased for how this weekend has gone.
I think that's where the issue lies for that second seat, because I think Tsunoda had the wrong setup on the car and he had such high wings that it meant that he was trying to be faster in that kind of first sector, but then it caused the car to be too snappy. Then you can't take the downforce off because obviously park firme, but then having less downforce will make that he can overtake in a straight line because they're getting faster in a straight line. It just, to be comfy is to be slow, to be sketchy is to be fast, but then that car is so hard to drive when it's sketchy. It's just a really difficult situation for any of these drivers to be in. And even Max Verstappen is on a knife edge for getting that right. Shall we do moment of the race?
Yes, let's do that.
Let's do moment of the race.
Do we have a jingle for that, do we?
Mate, at this point, I don't know what we have.
I don't think we do. Well, I think we already know yours, but what was your moment of the race?
Well, I thoroughly enjoy Alex Albon literally, boop, 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 boop. Hello, is that my team? You suck. I just called to say you suck. And the response coming back from the engineer just being,
okay.
Okay. Just got abuse over the phone. You are terrible. What are you doing?
Okay.
Okay, sorry, Alex.
You're still P9, Alex. Shut up.
You're still beating your teammate. You're still basically the next best car after the top teams. No, not good enough. Do more. Fuming, but at least he's driving really well. And at least he's allowed to be that much of a wings bag if you're driving that well. So that was my moment of the race.
Valid.
Loved it, hated it, wanted to tell him to shut up, but also fair play. He's doing really well.
Yeah, I loved it, but I hated it.
Life.
That's a valid one. This has already been mentioned. I was going to go for Lewis Hamilton still hating his new engine.
Where can I be faster? Here. Okay, how much? Give me some detail.
Well, there's so many corners that he's like, I can't give you that much detail.
War and peace over here, mate.
I'll be here for days. Just get on with it.
Where can I be better? You know that racetrack you're going around?
Yeah, all of it.
All of that.
All of that, please. Yeah, look, still some teething not problems. They're just getting to know each other still. And he's, his new engineer is not Bono. I love that Hamilton still talks to him like he is Bono, like he's a geezer, like, I'll wear him a faster, mate. And then his Italian voice comes back.
We are checking.
What is mate?
Ferrari had it on both sides, though. Leclerc, they were like...
he's such a sassy little man, Leclerc.
You change this setting for engine braking. No, that's why I'm not doing it.
No.
Leave me alone.
I don't want to do that.
I'm in fourth. Shut up. Move on. It's very, very good. Ben, hello.
What's your moment of the race?
My moment of the race. I'm also going to go with Ferrari Team Radio, but I was going to go with the Charles Leclerc one.
Yes. Nice.
Which was, oh God, what did he say exactly?
About the engine. We just said that about the engine braking.
Engine braking. He was like, I'm choosing not to do that.
Yes, I don't want to.
I don't want to do that.
I like Sassy Charles seems to have made a real appearance this year, and I'm here for it.
I think it's learning from Lewis, just being like, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. You guys suck. Get it together.
I'm so exhausted. I'm not doing anymore.